So we kind of need to talk about the Wales 10 jersey again. In my conversation with Andrew Ford, we spoke a lot about Costello, Anscombe and Ben Thomas, but there was one specific player with the way the conversation went on that we sort of skipped past, and that player definitely deserves to be spoken about the way he started this season. That's of course the subject of this video, Dan Edwards. Now, the way he's started his season has been very impressive. I spoke about him at the beginning in pre-season, and I highlighted him as a player I was really interested to see how they develop this year. And it was more along the fact of, is he going to take the step up now to the next level? Is he going to make himself to the quality that we need him to be called up for Wales? He obviously didn't get the call in the summer, which I think was the right decision, even though there wasn't really one outstanding outside half there. Gatland obviously went with Ben Thomas, but we can touch on him later. But Dan Edwards, I think, granted he's 21, so still very early. It's only his really first full season this season as a starter for the Ospreys. He obviously won the job at the end of last season, but he hasn't played that many games at regional rugby and at URC level. So you would say maybe we need to let him get used to this level. I kind of would agree with that usually in the normal circumstances. My issue is the other candidates that we've got about 4 or 5 that are vying for that jersey. Anscombe is the outstanding one, and granted, as long as he doesn't get injured, he's almost certainly going to be starting. He's been excellent for Gloucester at the opening of the season, and him and Thomas Williams have really already got chemistry, so it just works going straight into Wales, which has worked out nicely, them both being at Gloucester. But I think we need to try and develop that second tier now. We've obviously given Costello a lot of opportunities, and Johan Lloyd's had a run there, Ben Thomas has had a run there, and it seems like Gatland fancies Ben Thomas at the moment out of everyone. He commented that he wants players more of a larger frame, potentially in that position, the likes of Jacob Beetham as well. But I think that Dan Edwards' lack of size can be made up just for his all-round ability as a 10. What I've loved about him is he's come straight in and he's taken his opportunity with both hands instantly. Obviously, there's growing pains like there is with any young player, but famously, that position is a position where you just need time to play. Gareth Anscombe and other players, Toby Booth, has said, you just need time in the saddle, which obviously he's going to get, but we've lacked that a bit, especially since Bigger has gone and Anscombe has been struggling with his injury worries. Granted, Team Wales hasn't performed well, so it's been difficult for someone like Costello to come in and make that sort of impression. But is it maybe not necessarily in his game as good as it is with Dan Edwards? I'm not sure. But in sort of the recent years, Wales have been slightly guilty of not bringing that next crop through. And we are sort of seeing the fruits of that at the moment, where the last 2 years we've had all of these experienced players leaving, and then all of the players that are coming through now are basically starting international level from scratch. A lot of new caps happening over the last couple of years, and I think even though he's 21, I want to see him come in, and I really want to see him get some game time in this autumn. I'm not asking for him to play a large role, but I would like to see him get, 10, 15 minutes at the end of some games, just to get a taste of what it is going to take for him to take that next step, because we're playing some good teams over the autumn, and he's going to be tested to the absolute most of his ability. And number one, we'll see if he can do it. Will he sink or swim? But if he doesn't sort of necessarily hit the ground running, he knows then a marker, right, this is where I am at the moment, this is the URC level, this is where I need to get to. So I think that it's going to be beneficial for Wales. I think it'll be beneficial for him as a player, and probably for the Ospreys. Get him in that squad, get him in that environment, and get him used to understanding that he is that level, and I think it can be very, very positive for Wales. Now, of course, there are some other runners and riders. We'll put Anscombe in a pile of his own, because to me he's the out-and-out starter as long as he's fit. But then Gatland's obviously looked at putting Ben Thomas in that position. Looks like he's favouring him slightly, especially in the summer over Costello, who's really struggled. But to me, just Ben Thomas's performance at 12 of just make him, in my opinion, impossible to not play in that position. Gatland obviously likes to do his own thing, as he's done. I mean, he's putting Grady at 12, things like that everyone else says they don't really see working, and he's trying it. So don't get me wrong, Ben Thomas would be a really good 10, and he was in the summer, and I think he'll get better in that position if he continues to play there for Wales. But at 12, he's been outstanding. He's got all that time on the ball. He's got a really cultured kicking game and a bit of vision, and I think that's what Wales are lacking. Also, I know we're early in the season, so small sample size, but he's top of the URC for successful carries. So it just shows that not necessarily the biggest 12 around, but it doesn't matter the way he plays, he can get over that gain line for us. So I hope Gatland actually sees him more as a 12, because in my opinion, he's one of the best, if not the best, centre in Wales at the moment, current form. People might argue with that one, I would imagine. Then you look at Costello, as I said, he's really struggled, and he's come back this season and he's continued to struggle. Obviously, the first game he had to miss, drop out, was a late replacement, which can't be helped. But then in the Cardiff game, he was very hot and cold. His kicking was pretty poor, especially off the tees, just completely devoid of confidence. There was different times in that game where Scarlets were had lost control of the game and Cardiff had taken over, and they had a penalty which was more than kickable, and he missed it, and the momentum was lost for the Scarlets. And then when they could have got the bonus point at the end, and then they would have had 1 or 2 minutes to maybe get the ball and score and snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat, he missed that kick as well. And they're not sitters, but he's got into this rhythm now and this mode of where he's obviously devoid of confidence in front of goal. The other player is, of course, Khan Sheedy, who a lot of people, myself included, said they would fancy for perhaps the job to back up Anscombe. Still might get it. He's had a really good start to the season, a little bit inconsistent off the tee, and Gatland will obviously take notice of that. His kicking out of hand has been good, and just all-round play control and stuff, very good. But defensive frailties really showed up against Glasgow, and he got bullied by Tui Polotu. I understand there was a lot of issues with players going off injured and stuff for Cardiff, and they had to rearrange stuff. But his just simple one-on-one tackling, it wasn't necessarily good enough. So I wonder if Gatland will take notice of that as well, because obviously we know Gatland really takes pride on stuff like that, the defence and everything. So Sheedy bolted out of the blocks really quick and looked like the front runner, but I think the last week has shown the weaknesses in his game, and I wonder if that's, like I said, something Gatland is going to take notice of. So the point I'm basically trying to make is we've got all of these outside halves that could potentially back up Anscombe, but I think the benefits of putting Edwards in the squad and giving him some game time at the end of the autumn tests for him to just taste it, see where he's at, and I think he's going to flourish, because every time he gets an opportunity, he just shows how mature and how quickly he learns, and he gets better. Literally month on month, he's a better player than he was the month before, and that speed of learning is very impressive. So let's test him out and give him an opportunity. I'd like to know what you guys think. Catch you on the next one.